The first thing I noticed when I moved into the building was the light. Apartment 3B, directly across from mine, always glowed, a harsh white light that bled through the frosted glass panel above the door, humming faintly at all hours. At first, it seemed like nothing. Maybe the tenant worked night shifts or hated the dark, but after a few nights of lying awake, watching that sliver of light leak beneath the door into the hallway, it started to feel wrong. The rest of the floor was silent. Lights out, doors locked, and still 3B burned on. By week 2, I realized something else. I had never seen anyone go in or out. The building itself was old, 1970s concrete, walls so thin you could hear the plumbing sigh. My apartment smelled faintly of dust and bleach. Every morning I'd leave for work at 7:30, and every morning the light from 3B glared just as bright. By the time I got home, sometimes past 10, it was still there, unblinking. One night, coming up the stairwell, I passed Mr. Hansen, the building's superintendent. "Hey," I asked casually, "does someone actually live in 3B? He paused, his mop squeaking against the tile. "Of course," he said after a beat. "Why?" "Just, the light's always on." He gave a thin smile. "Some people don't like the dark." Then he turned away before I could say another word. That answer didn't satisfy me. Over the next few nights, I started paying attention. Every sound, every flicker from under that door. On Thursday, around midnight, there was a sound. Faint but distinct. A dragging noise. Slow. Rhythmic. Like something heavy scraping across the floor. Then silence. I froze. The noise had come from 3B. After a moment, curiosity won. I stepped into the hallway, barefoot, the tile cold beneath my feet. The door's frosted panel was glowing harshly, but shadows moved behind it, uneven, slow, like someone pacing in circles. Then, click. A shape passed directly in front of the glass. A head. I stumbled back into my apartment, locked the door, and turned off the lights. For a long time I sat on the couch, staring at the gap under my own door. The glow from across the hall never wavered. By Saturday, I couldn't take it anymore. That morning, I watched from the peephole. Hours passed. No footsteps, no deliveries, no keys turning into the lock. Just that light. Finally, I decided to knock. No answer. I pressed my ear to the wood. Nothing. Then just as I turned to leave, something hit the door from the inside. I jumped back. My heart slammed against my ribs. But then, silence again. No movement, no voice. I backed away slowly and returned to my apartment, locking it twice. That night I woke to the sound of footsteps in the hall. Heavy, deliberate steps, stopping right outside my door. I held my breath. Through the peephole I could see it. A figure tall, motionless, standing under the harsh light from 3B. But I couldn't see the face. Then the figure turned, and instead of walking away, it opened the door to 3B. The light poured out brighter, blinding for a moment, and the door shut behind them. The next morning, I went to Mr. Hansen again. "There's someone going into 3B, I said. "Last night, around 2. He frowned. "Impossible." "Why?" He rubbed the back of his neck. 3B's been empty since January. I just stared. "Empty?" He nodded. "Tenant died. Carbon monoxide leak, they said. I've been waiting for the inspection to clear before listing it again." "But the light?" He looked puzzled. There's no power running there. My skin went cold. That's not possible. I saw it. Every night. He frowned deeper. You sure you're not mistaking the floor? That night I waited again. Midnight. 1 a.m. And there it was, that glow, bright as ever. Something inside me snapped. I grabbed my phone, turned on the camera, and stepped into the hall. If I record it, I told myself, someone will believe me. The air felt colder out there. The light buzzed faintly. I reached for the knob of 3B. It was warm. Then slowly, I pushed the door open. The light hit me like a flood. I had to squint. But the room inside was empty. Completely empty. No furniture, no curtains, just white walls. The light came from a single bare bulb swinging slightly from the ceiling. Then my phone beeped. Beep. Recording failed. Behind me, I heard the softest sound. Shh. That dragging noise again. I turned. Nothing. When I looked back into the apartment, the light bulb had stopped swaying, and the door shut by itself. Slam. I woke up the next morning in my own bed. My head ached. My clothes were on the floor. For a moment, I thought it had been a dream. Until I checked my phone. The video was there, just static, but near the end, one frame caught my breath. The reflection in the window across the room. Someone was standing behind me. I went straight to Hansen again, demanding answers. He sighed, then led me down the hall, muttering. When we reached 3B, he inserted his key, pushed the door open, and everything inside was sealed. Plastic sheets, empty drywall, no bulb, no light. He turned to me. See? Nothing here. But something else caught my eye. A dark smudge on the far wall. I stepped closer. It wasn't dirt. It was writing, faint, like it had been scrubbed out. I could just make out the words. Turn off the light. That night, my own apartment light flickered. And when I went into the hall, the glow from 3B was gone. Relieved, I went to bed. But around 3 a.m., a sound woke me. Click. My lamp had turned on by itself, and from the other side of the wall, faint but clear. Shh. 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 The first night I saw him, I thought it was a coincidence. It was 3 a.m. I remember because the time glowed red on the microwave across the kitchen. I couldn't sleep. The city felt muffled, quieter than usual, like the whole world was holding its breath. I poured a glass of water, leaned against the counter, and happened to glance out my window. Across the street, in the building opposite mine, a man stood framed in a lit window. His face was barely visible through the glare of the glass, but I could make out his outline. Tall, thin, wearing something white. He didn't move, just stood there, staring out, perfectly still. And then slowly, he raised his hand and waved. It wasn't friendly. It wasn't casual. It was slow, deliberate. Like he was acknowledging me, specifically. I froze, the glass cold in my hand. After a few seconds, I stepped back, pretending I hadn't seen him. I laughed quietly to myself. Weird, I muttered and went back to bed. But that was only night one. By the third night, I'd started to expect it. Same time, 3 a.m., same window, same motion. Every night he'd appear in that light across the street, staring out and moving slowly. Never earlier, never later. It became part of my insomnia routine. Stare at the ceiling, check the clock, look across the street. And there he was, like a ghost repeating the same loop. I started keeping the curtains closed. But one night, curiosity won. I pulled the curtain open, and instead of standing in the same spot, he was closer to the glass. I could make out more details. Unkempt hair, hollow eyes, an expression that didn't quite match the gesture. His wave was slow, robotic. Up, down, up, down. And then he stopped, mid-wave. I could have sworn he was looking right into me. The next morning I asked the super, an older man named Ed, if he knew who lived across the street in the top right apartment. He frowned. "You mean the one with the light always on?" "Yeah," I said. "You know him?" "Used to. That unit's been empty for a while. Something happened a few months back. Gas leak, maybe. Whole floor was evacuated. Then who's living there now?" He shrugged. "No one. Power's supposed to be cut." I tried to laugh it off, but my voice sounded thin. "Right. Guess someone forgot to pay the bill." He didn't laugh back. That night I woke to a sound. A thud. Soft but close, like someone knocking gently on glass. I thought it came from the window. Then again, I sat up, my chest tight. The sound wasn't from outside. It was in rhythm. I turned my head. My window was dark, my curtains drawn. Slowly I stood, hands shaking as I reached for them. I pulled the curtain back an inch. Across the street, the light in his apartment was glowing again, and he was there. But this time, he wasn't waving. He was pointing, right at me. The next morning, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I told myself, I'd imagined it. Maybe the reflection of a lamp had looked like a person. Maybe the mind just filled in the blanks when you stare too long into the dark. But part of me knew better. I went to the police station on Main Street and asked about the address across the road. The officer looked up the property record, then frowned. That building had a fire in January. The top floor is still under investigation. Nobody's been cleared to live there yet. "Then how?" I started. He cut me off gently. "Whatever you saw, it wasn't supposed to be there." That night I decided to test it. At 2:55, I sat in front of my window, lights off, curtains slightly parted. I waited. The time was exactly at 3:00 a.m. Still nothing. Then 1 minute later, at 3:01, the light flickered on in his apartment, and there he was. He didn't move for a long time, just stood, silhouetted by the harsh white glow. Then right on cue, his arm lifted. The slow wave, I felt my throat tighten. This time I didn't move. I didn't blink. And then suddenly his light turned off. Darkness swallowed the window. I leaned forward, heart hammering. Then my own light, my desk lamp, flicked on by itself. Click. I spun around. No one. Just empty air. When I looked back out the window, he was gone. I didn't sleep. I sat awake until dawn, trying to convince myself it was an electrical glitch, or a reflection. The next day I noticed something I hadn't before. My window wasn't just facing his. It was aligned. Same height. Same distance from the corner. Perfect symmetry. And when I looked closely at the glass, I realized the reflection wasn't quite right. It didn't mirror my movements. When I leaned forward, the man in the opposite window didn't. He stayed perfectly still. That evening, I came home to find a note slipped under my door. No name. Just one sentence, scrawled in shaky handwriting. "Don't look at the window tonight." That was it. By midnight, I decided I'd obey it. Until 3:00 a.m. hit again. The glow pulled at me, like gravity. Against every instinct I looked. The light was on. But the window was empty. No man. No movement. Nothing. And then I froze, waited. Another knock. I crept toward it, leaned against the peephole. No one. Just the faint hum of the building's pipes and the glow from across the street. I turned back toward my window and saw the man. But this time he wasn't across the street. He was standing behind me. Just a shape, faintly reflected in the glass. His hand lifted, slow, mechanical, and waved. I screamed and spun around. No one was there. The air was still, cold. I tore open my door and bolted into the hallway. Empty. Silent. When I looked back, my apartment light was still on, curtains fluttering slightly from the movement I'd just made. But through that thin gap in the curtain, I saw it again. My own reflection, standing perfectly still. And it waved. The next morning, Ed found me asleep in the hallway, curled up outside my door. He asked what happened. I didn't answer. He sighed, rubbing his face. You're not the first tenant to say they saw something there, you know. I stared at him. What do you mean? He hesitated. The man who used to live across the street. He had an apartment just like yours, same view. He used to tell me he saw someone waving at him every night at 3 a.m. He paused, and one night he stopped answering his door. I moved out the next day, packed everything I could fit into my car. As I drove away, I told myself I'd never look back. But last night, while I was unpacking boxes in my new place, I caught a glimpse of the window, and across the courtyard, same alignment. Same angle. There it was. A man standing perfectly still in the glow of a white light, and right on time at 3 a.m. He waved.